Hello and welcome to the EV Loop podcast powered by Carloop. I'm Adrian Maidment.
And I'm Rizakta, your host.
This episode, Zeekr 7X crucial information. Is Tesla self-driving worth it? Chart of the week and vibe of the week. Hello, Riz.
Hey, Adrian. Good to be on. Everything seems to be on the rise with all the news that you've just touched on, plus a lot more. There's just heaps happening.
Yeah, we've got a lot of news to cover, so we'll get straight into it. We'll start with the life of the beautiful people of Australia, and apparently they were all in a Zeekr 7X event recently, which you were at, Riz.
The Zeekr 7X, the brand's most highly anticipated car because of many things, including the fact that it's a mid-sized SUV, which is a very popular segment in Australia. Fastest charging car in the market, up to 450 kilowatts. I don't think we have enough public chargers that are rated at that to be able to even test it, where in China, where the Zeekr is coming from, they have plenty of them, including those that are owned by Zeekr themselves, called Zeekr Power. I got a chance to test drive it at the iconic track in South Australia called The Bend, located at Tailem Bend, a town about 70 minutes drive from Adelaide CBD. On the track, it was quite a unique experience, given mid-sized SUV, not really designed for the track itself, but it performed really well, particularly the all-wheel drive performance variant, which was the first time we've had a drive of it on local roads.
So there's three variants, isn't there?
There's the rear-wheel drive, then there's a rear-wheel drive long range, and then there's an all-wheel drive performance. All-wheel drive performance, of course, has the air suspension, which we will touch on very soon because it was actually quite important for the second bit of driving that we did at the Bend, which is actually their off-roading track. So I'm not a off-roader, I'm very inexperienced, but there were instructors there in the car that do this for a living, and just following the steps and sort of the instructions they were giving out, plus using, the off-road mode that the 7X has, it was pretty incredible to see what this car is capable of, from soft roads over rocks, sort of very, very steep sort of hills, how it can get up it and come back down. Quite impressed on that. That was actually, in my opinion, quite a big highlight because I didn't even know you could do that with these types of electric SUVs.
Is it a game changer?
I think it is. I think it is a game changer from a point of view that it is a premium vehicle. It genuinely feels very, very high-end, a lot closer to the Volvo, if anyone sort of had a chance to sit in some of the Volvo vehicles. The tech overall is really nice. It's got a large screen in the middle. It's got a whole lot of buttons as well. The screen's icons are adjustable. Cabin is extremely quiet for for the type of vehicle it is. And it just handles so well even on the racetrack. It does such a good job. We didn't get a chance to drive it on public roads, but that's to come. Prices are starting at about $58,000 and going, for the performance top spec, it's $72,990. Now, just as a bit of a comparison, the new Model Y performance that has just been launched, that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, that starts at close to $90,000 before on roads. So a bit of a gap there in terms of pricing, but I think the 7X is priced extremely well for the type of vehicle that it is.
And they've already sold their initial targets, haven't they?
Yeah, so they did. I think they had about 1,000 pre-sales or pre-orders within a week of it being announced in August last month. And Zeekr's Australia's boss, Frank Lee, shared at the event that they have surpassed 2,000 pre-orders, which is a pretty big milestone for them. And I think once people get a chance that's before people have even had a chance to test drive it. Like, we were one of the first people to test drive it in South Australia. Before they've had a chance to even test drive vehicles, they've had 2,000 pre-orders. Another thing Mr. Lee said was locally in the Australian market, they have now got a dealer in South Australia as well, part of the Solitaire group. So they're definitely expanding their footprint with some amazing plans to come in 2026. So first customer test drives start on October the 6th in Australia. And then customer deliveries, actually, this is another key component of that we learned at the event. Customer deliveries will start on the 15th of October, which marks the 1-year anniversary for the brand in the Australian market. They had that launch up in Sydney on the ICC rooftop, where I was at last year. And yeah, just really interesting to see how the brand has evolved and what they're ready to deliver. Yeah, just definitely a brand for us to keep an eye on.
Okay, we'll leave it there and we'll look forward to some more further information on that brand. And while we're talking new things, the Tesla Model Y pricing on the self-driving supervisor has been announced. Do you think that's about in the ballpark there is?
So the subscription bit, is that what we're talking?
Yeah, subscription,
Now there's a subscription, which I think is a really, really good way of getting people to experience it, because not everyone's going to be able to are going to need it in that way. Obviously Tesla would like people to be using it a lot more so they can get used to it and make it as an offer you can't refuse. Then, Tesla gets monthly recurring revenue. $149. It's coming soon in Australia. $149 a month. Having experienced it, in my opinion, if the car is capable with hardware 4, it's worth it. Depending on the type of driving that you do, it's worth it for busy city traffic, stuck in the morning on the freeway or whatever. I think it's worth it from that point of view. Worth it for long road trips, especially over summer. So I'm really happy to see that there's a subscription that is coming. And what I would love to see, which is what happens in the US, is every new Tesla comes with a 1-month free FSD supervised, basically with the car. That way people can experience it. And it would be even better if we get a 1-month trial for existing Tesla customers, starting with the hardware 4 cars over the Christmas break, just so that people can get familiar with the system. It's not the first time Tesla's done anything like that. Tesla did something back in a couple of years ago. Enhanced autopilot, which helps you change lanes and other things, was bought on as a trial for people that didn't have it. I didn't end up purchasing it afterwards, but it was still a very nice feature to have. And as the tech improves, I think FSD supervised will start to get that adoption up there in Australia and New Zealand market.
Yeah, over Christmas is a great idea with all the busy traffic on the road. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see if they're paying attention. We'll see what happens there.
Well, Tesla, if you're listening, you've done this before. You're hearing it here first on EV Loop. Let's make it happen. I think it's a great way to get people to understand the limitations, but also the benefits of the system.
Okay, Riz, chart of the week. I'm pretty excited. What have you got for us this week?
So yeah, as I touched on earlier, we were in South Australia this week with the Zeekr 7X launch. Every time I go to South Australia, in Adelaide, the weather is always just gorgeous, and that was the same for across both days. So in South Australia with EV uptake, they've surpassed 15,000 battery electric vehicles, which is pretty good given, the size of the total fleet within the state. Charging infrastructure is growing. That's been a key thing that's driven part of the uptake itself. The number of dealers that are selling electric cars is obviously increasing as well. New brands such as we mentioned, Zeekr, now having a dealership there as well, where traditionally some brands might ship vehicles or sell them out of their Victorian dealerships to South Australian customers. So it's all starting to come together. Over 15,000 battery electric vehicles in South Australia, and I'm really excited to see as we get more affordable and a larger variety of cars, what that does to EV uptake within the state. An interesting point is when we were at this track, the Bend, it's right next to a Hungry Jack's, which is a fast food restaurant. And that's
not that amazing. Is it amazing?
Well, it's like Burger King.
I know it's familiar, but it's fast food.
But where bring it back to the EV space. Is they have a Tesla superchargers at the Bend. They were installed a couple of years ago and they're used all the time. Plus, there's charging at the track as well. So South Australians really picking up the EV curve. And I'm really excited to see what comes next.
Okay, we'll move on. Just a couple other stories. Just a quick story, New Zealand related, which might be Australia related. Atto 1. Do you want to talk about that?
this is related because I think the fact that it's heading over to New Zealand, it's a big step because people have been wanting a small car, small electric offering in our markets. Having driven it in May in China, I think it's a fantastic car. Drove it in April as well when I was there, and yeah, having it in New Zealand is a great first step of getting it into Australia. So we've spoken that earlier in the year, the BYD Seagull turned into BYD Dolphin Surf, and now the Atto 1, basically the same car. But in Europe, they've had to make some changes to it to get it into the markets like the UK. I'm not sure which variant is actually going into the New Zealand market, but that is still great. So I covered that story according to EVs and Beyond, who gave us a bit of a tip off that was happening, and it's a really, really good thing that that's starting to come into the New Zealand market. Plenty of people interested because when I wrote that article on The Driven about it, always lots of interaction and engagement from people that want a car that's small into our market. So
It might have been because you used the word flocking in related to seagull, and you're punning on the opening sentence of that article.
Hey, it could possibly be the case, but I think it's a good car. So big news. But that wasn't the only thing. I think there is another announcement which really surprised everybody in that EVs and Beyond article, where they covered the fact that there's a all-wheel drive performance variant coming off the Atto 3. All-wheel drives are pretty important in the fleet industry, in the construction industry, in Australia anyway. If you have a vehicle that's not all-wheel drive, you're not allowed on many of the construction sites or projects. So for construction fleets to start to go electric, I think it's an important piece. So there are companies and organizations that will only buy all-wheel drive vehicles. Whether that comes, apparently the orders are supposed to open on this side of Christmas. I'll be very curious to see, because I hadn't even heard that variant existed anywhere in the world, and BYD took us all around their showrooms and everything and their head offices back in May, and yeah, I didn't see it. So that was a big surprise. And of course, then there's the Sea Lion 8 plug-in hybrid that's also on the cards, and the Atto 2, which is smaller than the Atto 3, but I think a bit more conventional, a bit more it'll be quite well received. I'm really hoping to see the pricing in Australia fall around $35,000 to $37,000 mark. If it does, I think it will sell quite well. But yeah, time will tell.
And let's just get into some policy news, because we all like our policy news. So could you enlighten us in an informative way about that, Riz?
Yeah, so the Australian government has announced that they have now set a pretty firm firm in the sense that they've given a range of how much we need to reduce our emissions by, and by 2035 between 62 and 70%. That is quite a range, but at least it sets the path for industry, corporates, and others to start to pay attention to reducing their emissions in a big way, because every year you would need to be tracking that. Another key part about that tracking bit is that some of the heavy polluting areas that the government touched on this week when they made the announcement was around heavy industries. So that's mining, construction, a whole lot of those. So there's going to be a huge push to decarbonize that, but also the transport sector, which of course includes, trucks, light vehicles, pretty much anything that moves people and goods. So at least we have a direction. It's going to be progressing pretty quickly, and yeah, I think it's exciting that they've announced something. As part of that, I believe they've provided up to $2 billion to Clean Energy Finance Corporation to fund projects or support projects that are green and clean in those key areas, as well as announcing a $40 million towards a curbside charging network within our inner cities. Who knows, we might not see anything come off this for at least a couple of months, but when things start to move, things will move quickly, so that, we can start to track and trace and reduce emissions in all of those key areas, and really set the direction for businesses and others to say, hey, you can no longer sit on your laurels, you actually have to do something. So, this is where a lot of the stuff that we're doing at Carloop is all in preparation for how do we track and trace a lot of that, emission reduction piece when it comes to the transport sector by tracking, electric vehicles on the ground by postcode level and projecting them so that we can see whether we'll hit those targets or not. So it's a pretty big stance by the federal government now. And it will be quite interesting to see what happens in the future as the opposition and other parties are now, having their say on what they think about this plan or this target. And I think most Australians understand that this needs to happen, as part of reducing the impact of global warming.
Okay, and finally, is a bit of a vibe thing to finish off the week, or finish off the episode with? What's your vibe?
What a segue, Adrian, because we've just been talking about all of this big policy stuff. Pretty excited, I think. Zeekr 7X, it's a pretty major vehicle from what you can get for the money now, but also models are launching pretty much every second week now. So we've been talking about it on this podcast, but yeah, there's just plenty happening. Charging infrastructure I think we'll need a bit of a kick in the backside to really get up into gear. But now that there's clear direction by the federal government as well on emission reduction targets, it just needs to happen to encourage more people to be able to buy a cleaner electric car.
Okay, we'll leave it there, and we'll just remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, got a question, let us know, and we'll get back to you hopefully.
Thanks everyone, and look forward to the next one.